Hi, I'm horror author Paul Edwards. Today I'm reading Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, issue 88 from 1972. I thought you might enjoy flipping through this vintage magazine with me. Together, let's see what kinds of Monster Kid goodness is in here. Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue 88, January 1972, when the cover price was 60 cents, and well worth it to get a cover story on Night of Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows was a television soap opera that had a gothic supernatural angle to it. It was a continuing story that was on 5 days a week, like any other soap opera, except it had all kinds of gothic horror stories in it. And some of the main characters were ghosts, witches, vampires, werewolves. Not all of the main characters, but enough to keep a regular horror motif going on the show. So Dark Shadows was very popular, and it spawned a couple of movies. This one, Night of Dark Shadows, is the one we're getting this time. A witch is hanged on the Collinwood estate. Evil spirits are released from coffins, doomed to roam the earth as the living dead. Exclusive preview in this exciting issue. Wow. Also, we get a mystery photo. And I'm sure we're going to get lots more monster goodness in here. Let's check it out. Whoa. Yikes. All right, what are we getting in this issue? Famous Munsters. Of course, that's going to be the Munsters TV series. The Monster Speaks. Girls and Ghouls Gallery. Aliens, Beasts, and Creatures. The alphabet of Monsterdom. ABC, get it? Farewell to the Master. Okay, well, we got, and Monster Comics even. Okay, all right, let's get going here. Let's see what we got. Oh, lots of letters to the editor in this issue. Lots of people getting their picture published. All right, our cover story, of course, Night of Dark Shadows. Gothic ghosts strike again. So if you're not familiar with Dark Shadows, it ran for about 5 years, and there are something like 1,100 episodes, something like that, all of which have been preserved, and you can find them all online. And if you have a whole ton of time, you can sit and watch the whole series from the very first episode onward. A lot of people feel that the series, quote unquote, started with the arrival of who became the main character, Barnabas Collins, the vampire. He wasn't in it at the very beginning. He came in about 3 or 4 months into the show. So somewhere around episode 100, you could look up the exact episode online, but somewhere around episode 100, they introduced Barnabas Collins, the vampire. And that's when the Dark Shadows, most people remember, really gets going. Although even before Barnabas, they had some spooky stories. But on this TV series, they did their own versions of a lot of classic horror stories, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, several Edgar Allan Poe stories. They did a Crawling Hand story. They did several ghost-related time travel stories, where they would go back into the past and see the ancestors of the current characters. And a lot of the actors on the show wound up playing multiple roles, because you would play the current character in today's world of 1970, and then you would also play the ancestor of that character who happened to look just like that person from, 200 years ago. But it was clever. They never ran out of ideas. Some people didn't like the direction the series took in the final season, and that might be why it wound up being canceled. But for the lion's share of the run. It was really good. And now we're going to something much less spooky. The Munsters was a situation comedy TV series in the 1960s about a family of friendly monsters living in suburbia. Herman Munster and Lillian Munster, his wife, were the main characters. One of the big supporting characters was Grandpa. A lot of people call him Grandpa Munster, but that's actually not right because Munster is Herman's last name, and Lillian took Herman's last name of Munster when she married him. Grandpa's last name is not Munster. I don't know what Grandpa's last name is. If there's a diehard fan out there who knows Lillian's maiden name, please let us know. You know what's funny? Look, even in the magazine, Grandpa Munster, but that's not right. He wasn't Grandpa Munster. People call him that so that you know who you're talking about. But that's not the character's name. He was just Grandpa in the show. You know, something funny is that in the 1980s, Al Lewis ran for governor of New York State as a progressive candidate. And there was a court case because he wanted to be listed on the ballot as Grandpa Al Lewis. And the reason is, if you see on the ballot Al Lewis, you're like, who is that? I have no idea who that is. But if people put the nickname Grandpa Al Lewis, then a lot of people were like, oh, okay, I know who they mean, the guy that played Grandpa in the Munsters. So Al Lewis went to court to be allowed to run as Grandpa Al Lewis, and he lost. He was not allowed to do it. He had to appear on the ballot as Al Lewis. And he did not win governor of New York, just in case you're wondering. Their little boy was a little werewolf, Eddie Munster, with his little werewolf doll. There's future superstar Fred Gwynne, who a lot of people know from roles he took later in his career. But at the time, this was the biggest role he had. Yvonne DiCarlo as Lillian. Look at Grandpa's mousetrap. I love it. What's he trying to catch? The giant rat of Sumatra? It's a nice grandpa and grandson moment, sitting in an electric chair. Just plain folks. Part of the joke of the Munsters was that they had no idea that they were unusual. They thought they were a typical family. And they just couldn't understand why people would react adversely to them because they were so nice. Also, they had one of their family members was Marilyn Munster, who was a normal human being and was drop dead gorgeous. But the Munsters all thought that she was ugly, and they all felt bad for her. Oh, poor Marilyn. She'll never get a man. She's so ugly because, she didn't look like a monster. Oh, Christopher Lee answers fans' questions. Yeah. So Christopher Lee played the Frankenstein monster in Curse of Frankenstein in 1957. This is in one of those Amicus anthology films where they did a crawling hand story. And you hear the crawling hand is getting Christopher Lee. Here, Lee is talking about some of his own favorite old-time horror stars and horror movies. And he cites Lon Chaney Sr. There he is as Dracula. What sort of books do you like to read? You figure he's going to say, scary stories or something. I read historical biographies, some science fiction, and tales of the uncanny, notably by Lovecraft, Bradbury, and Dixon Carr. a certain amount of historical fiction, and occasionally a technical book about the cinema. Yeah, it sounds like he was an avid reader. Girls and Ghouls Gallery. Gosh. The ABCs of Aliens, Beasts, and Creatures. Oh my gosh. Oh. Farewell to the Master. Death claims Michael Rennie. Seen here in The Day the Earth Stood Still. Gort brought Rennie back to life once before. Would that he could work such a miracle once more. Oh, here's some horror comics. Looks like we're going for the gothic horror this time. Although somehow, wait a minute. Gothic horror, spaceship. What is going on here? Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you want to take a screen grab and read it, help yourself. I do like the artwork, though. Oh, do you know what horror film this is from? I do. I recognize this. This is from the Alligator People. 1959, I believe. I know it's the Alligator People. I think the year is 1959. You asked for it. This is an image I've never seen before. I don't know if you have. So, of course, this is David Hedison, who starred in the TV series Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea as Lee Crane. And he's in costume and presumably in character as Lee Crane. And he's fighting against a monster from a different Irwin Allen production. This is the Cyclops from early in Lost in Space. It was an early episode of Lost in Space that the Cyclops appeared. I mean, I'm rooting for you, Crane, but I'm pretty sure the Cyclops is going to win. Oh, wow. Check out the spider web. That's really good. I like that a lot. Oh. This is a lesser known werewolf movie with the really original title of The Werewolf from the 1950s. It's really not that bad. It's a black and white B movie, made for drive-in theaters. Nothing special about it, but you do get a lot of screen time for the monster, which you did not always get in 1950s B movies. A lot of times they would hold back showing you the monster for as long as they could get away with. Here you get plenty of screen time with the werewolf. Oh. The most evil role Karloff ever had. Remember this when he was the executioner in Tower of London? The older version of Tower of London? Coming to get those poor boys. Pretty creepy. Oh no, they got the Gill Man. So here's a question. If you're familiar with your Creature from the Black Lagoon movies, when they went back for the second movie, Revenge of the Creature, was it even the same Gill Man? Or were they just running across another one of the same species? Because he sure looked dead at the beginning of that, at the ending of Creature from the Black Lagoon. He sure looked dead. And I know death means nothing in movies when they want to make a sequel, but I think it's just as logical that this was not the first creature. This was just another one of the same species that they found, in the same area of the Amazon. But I don't know. I could be wrong. You tell me what you think. Oh my gosh, the adventure at the center of the earth. Wow. Wow, they're doing a lot of You Asked For It this issue. Hunchback of Notre Dame. The Unknown Terror. Wow. Yep, this is The Revenge of the Invisible Man. This is the world that was in the days of the dinos. Now, this is an article that would have caught my attention more when I was a kid. I would have rather that be on the cover. I would have been more likely to buy this issue if the dinosaurs had been on the cover. But okay. Oh, and it's going to be Harryhausen. Ray Harryhausen did a lot of stop motion animation of prehistoric creatures. Oh, wow. The most terrible creature of destruction that ever walked the earth. I think it's Harryhausen that originated the trope of a Tyrannosaurus fighting a Triceratops, which is a very common matchup that they have in dinosaur movies and fiction, is to have a Triceratops fighting a T-Rex. And as far as I know, that originated with Harryhausen. This time around, the T-Rex won. I think this fight would mostly depend on how fast or slow the T-Rex was, because obviously he's not going to get anywhere at all attacking the front of the Triceratops. The Triceratops is going to win that way. But if the T-Rex can get around his bony plate here of protection, if the T-Rex is fast enough to get around all that, the spikes and horns and everything on the head, and get to the main body of the Triceratops, I think the T-Rex is going to win, because he could break the spine. So don't let him get behind you, Triceratops. Oh, Tarzan. How many of you, I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen 20th century Tarzan movies, but how many of you have read the actual Tarzan novels? I'd be interested to hear that. I have never read a Tarzan novel. I've seen plenty of the movies. I'm sure not all, because there were a lot. I've seen plenty of them, but I've never read any of them. You can get your scary monsters, or your superheroes, or your science fiction, or your Steve McQueen. The live monkeys they were selling here, this was not a gimmick. Sadly, they really were selling live monkeys by mail order. Imagine if they were really selling monster flies by mail order. Movie masks. Those look good. Fabulous 1972 yearbooks. I have this one. Oops. Terror trivia test. Uh-oh. Number one, when was the first Frankenstein film made? You should know that. The common man probably thinks it was the Boris Karloff 1931 Frankenstein, but it wasn't. It was the Edison Frankenstein, but I'm not 100% sure of the year of the Edison Frankenstein. If I had to guess, I'd say 1910. It was certainly way before the Karloff one. Let's try one more. I'm not going to do them all. The Claude Rains version of Phantom of the Opera won how many Academy Awards? I do not know the answer to that. I do know that in 1932, Frederick March won the Best Actor Oscar for his portrayal of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the 1931 film. But the Phantom of the Opera, the Claude Rains one, which was in the 40s, I don't know the answer to that. Here, I'll redeem myself. Who was the voice of the Invisible Man at the end of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein? Vincent Price, who had played the Invisible Man in Return of the Invisible Man. There. Okay. I do have some idea what I'm talking about. I asked this recently in another video, but whatever happened to this character, the Phantom? This character used to be in the Sunday comic strips and was well known. Now it's completely forgotten. I mean, there were other Sunday comic strips like Dick Tracy that, you know, that got left behind by history, but people still remember what they are. But nobody seems to even remember this, the Phantom. Mandrake the Magician, arguably the first comic book superhero, or at least the first comics superhero, I should say it that way, because he was in the Sunday newspaper comics before there were such things as comic books. Oh my gosh. Well, and we're closing out with an offer for Monster World magazine, which was a sister publication put out by the same people who made this main magazine, Famous Monsters of Filmland. If you enjoy classic monsters and vintage horror, check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. Basically, I write books for people who like monster movies. Each of my books has a different set of characters facing a different monster in a haunted wilderness, Mourner's Woods. That's the only commonality from one book to another, is they all take place in the same haunted forest. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books. They're for sale on Amazon, and I put the link in the description for all my videos. Thanks for spending some time looking through Famous Monsters of Filmland issue 88 with me. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.